the most terrifying ghost story ever recorded. This is the Enfield Poltergeist. In the suburbs of North London in 1977, 13-year-old Janet, her sister, their mother and stepfather lived in a modest two-bedroom house with a single bathroom. Janet's father had left the family home several years ago, and they were struggling financially. The stepfather was unemployed and the mother worked as a typist to try to make ends meet. Their house was old and drafty, and there were frequent power cuts. One night, Janet was awakened in her bed by what sounded like screams in the night. She told her mother about it the next morning, but the mother just told her that she was making it up. One evening, while watching television in the front room, they heard a crash from upstairs. They assumed it was a branch from the tree outside, but later that night, they were awoken again by loud bangs. Janet sat up in her bed and turned on her bedside lamp. Suddenly, the light fitting fell from the ceiling and narrowly missed her, showering glass and plaster across the room. The mother, horrified for her daughter's safety, sent her to stay with friends for a few days. But when she returned, the hauntings started again. This time, the mother was present when the light fitting came crashing down. Although the house was empty apart from themselves, they then heard footsteps in the hallway, close by, yet nobody was there. As the weeks went by, the haunting grew stronger. Books flew off shelves, ornaments smashed, and pictures fell from the walls. The mother had now called in her friend, Mrs. Mubjiner. She stayed with them for 3 weeks, sleeping in Janet's room. Nothing happened in her presence, but once she left, the hauntings started again. Now, more than ever, they decided to call in an expert, and so they contacted the Ghost Club. 2 investigators visited the house, and brought with them a group of skeptics. And in front of them all, the table levitated several inches off the ground. One of the skeptics, Guy Playfair, was so shocked that he punched the table, knocking it over. While filming a television documentary, Guy returned to the house alone one night, and he claims he saw the ghost of a little girl standing at the end of the bed. When he approached her, she disappeared. He later wrote this experience off as a trick of the light. With the television cameras set up in the house, the Ghost Club investigators watched as objects moved around the room, seemingly of their own accord. Then, suddenly, the armchair began shaking violently. The Ghost Club had never seen anything like it. They packed up their equipment and left. The haunting continued. Then one day, a local priest conducted an exorcism in the house, which seemed to stop the moving objects. But later that day, it started again. Now, more terrified than ever, the mother and her children left the house and went to stay in a hotel. To their horror, objects were thrown around the hotel room, smashing the television and breaking the furniture. It became known locally as the Enfield Poltergeist. News of the haunting spread far and wide. Hundreds of people came from all around the country to see the house where the ghostly activity was centered. Many of these visitors were rude and disruptive, climbing into the garden to peer through the windows, or even throwing stones through them. Janet was now receiving threatening letters, some saying she should be killed. Her mother, desperate to protect her children, took them away to live with relatives in Wales. In North London, the ghost hunters gathered. Ghost Club leader Harry Price said he believed it was an interdimensional being and not a ghost. Author Peter Underwood suggested it may have been a poltergeist attached to the stepfather. Some even claimed it was a government experiment, while others said it was all made up. As more and more theories were put forward, newspapers and magazines across the world ran stories of the Enfield Poltergeist. Even American television networks were interested, and so it was that the paranormal researchers arrived at the Hodgson home, ready to investigate. Led by the experienced investigator Ed and Lorraine Warren, they planned to uncover the truth behind the terrifying hauntings. Ed and Lorraine Warren were famous in the field of paranormal investigation. They had many famous cases under their belts, such as the Amityville Horror and the Smurl haunting. They had written several books about their experiences and their skills were in high demand. They entered the house and searched every room, checking for anything that might explain the strange events, loose floorboards, gas pipes, or electrical wiring, but they found nothing. They asked if anyone had died in the house, but the residents said no one that they knew of. The Warrens had come across similar cases before, but this was different. There was something evil here. Days passed and the Warrens' research continued. They interviewed the family, asking them questions about the events they had experienced since living in the house. They also carried out experiments, trying to communicate with any spirits that might be present. They weren't having much luck though. Then one evening, as they sat in the front room, the lights flickered and the radio turned itself on. This was the break they had been waiting for. They had proof that there was some kind of entity in the house with them. They continued their investigation for several more days, documenting every event. Then, it was time for them to leave. But first, they confronted whatever spirit was haunting the house. Standing in the middle of the room, they commanded it to reveal itself. Suddenly, the closet door flew open, and the family screamed. But when the Warrens turned to look, there was nothing there. Lorraine was hit with a vision of a little girl who appeared to be crying. She then vanished. The Warrens believed that the spirit was that of a young girl who had lived in the house many years before and had died under mysterious circumstances. Lorraine felt that the spirit was not evil, but scared and confused. They advised the family to contact a priest and leave the house immediately. Once the family was safely out of the house, the Warrens performed an exorcism, banishing the spirit from the premises. Afterward, the house was quiet. It seemed as if the haunting was over. Years passed and the family moved back into the house. The hauntings began again, just as before. Then one day, while clearing out the attic, they discovered a small wooden box. Inside, they found several children's shoes, a doll, and a diary. The diary belonged to a little girl who had lived in the house during the 1930s. She had written about how she liked to play with her friends in the garden. The family assumed that the spirit haunting them was that of this little girl. They contacted the Ghost Club once again and asked for help. The Ghost Club team arranged for a medium to visit the house and see if she could communicate with the spirit. She told them that the spirit did not wish to harm them, but was very lonely and wanted to play. The medium suggested that they hold a séance and try to contact the spirit. That evening, the family and the Ghost Club members gathered in the front room. They lit candles and incense and began to speak to the spirit. Suddenly, the air grew cold and the temperature dropped. The medium began to shake violently. She screamed that the spirit was angry and wanted to hurt them. The medium collapsed and the séance ended. No one knows what happened to the spirit. The family still live in the house, but no one has ever heard a child's voice or seen the shadow of a little girl running up the stairs. So what do you think? Was this a case of a lost and lonely spirit, an evil demon, or simply the imagination of a troubled teenage girl? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear another scary ghost story, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling true stories, paranormal mysteries,